welcome everybody to a brand new week. Your midterms are due tomorrow at midnight, and we got a new Zybooks up, so make sure you do those. So today we're going to be continuing our discussion of fallacies. So we're not going to be done with them today. We are continuing them today. So we're going to go through 5 or 6 today. We'll see how it goes. So I'd like for you guys to, as we do this, I want you to be posting on Discord your own version of the fallacy. So if you've ever seen this fallacy used in real life before, post it on Discord, get your participation points in. Okay. So the first one we got here is circular logic. So circular logic is when you assume your conclusion, more or less. There's a couple different ways you can put it, but what's the problem with this? Like, what's wrong with this argument? Because technically it's valid, I guess. If 2 plus 2 equals 4, then 2 plus 2 equals 4. I mean, it's not wrong. Assume 2 plus 2 equals 3, then you can conclude 2 plus 2 equals 3, right? What's the problem with this stuff? Post it on chat now. Okay, yeah. So you guys had some pretty good answers there. Basically you can prove anything using this, right? Assume that God is real, therefore God is real. Assume God is not real, therefore God is not real. If you use this form of argument, you could literally argue for anything and its opposite, right? So there's clearly a problem with this. And the problem is that with an argument, you need to reason from evidence to a conclusion. And what they're doing here is they're starting with the starting point and not actually going anywhere, right? Like they're just still at the origin, and they're not making any moves, so to speak, right? So this is pointless. This is a pointless argument. So usually though, people don't just put an argument online like this, right? Because it's pretty obvious that this is not a good argument. And so you can disguise it though using multiple steps. So if you assume God's not real, then you can conclude from that, right? If God's not real, then any evidence for God in the Bible must be wrong, must be mistaken somehow, right? Therefore, there is no evidence for God because all the evidence for God is wrong. And we shouldn't believe things that have no evidence. Therefore, God's not real. And then, there you go. And this is actually a legitimate argument that I've seen people make many times online. And they, don't realize that it's circular, right? Because, it seems like they've made multiple steps, but they haven't. Like, this is just assuming their conclusion. If you ever look at the conclusion of an argument and it's the same as the assumption, that you start with in the premise, then it's circular. Okay. So, it basically you've just hidden the fact using multiple steps that it's a circular argument. Assuming something is true, but it might always be correct. You're assuming something is true, but it might always be correct. Yeah, your assumptions could be wrong, right? So, if your assumption's wrong, you're going to get a different conclusion. So, okay. Another example of circular logic would be, I know aliens are real because I had an encounter that could only be explained by aliens. So I had an encounter. The only explanation I would accept is aliens, and from that I conclude aliens exist. So circular logic happens a lot, because it's hard for us to separate out our biases and our presumptions and things like that. A lot of times when people make arguments, they're actually just arguing my biases are correct. And so they argue with somebody, and then the other person says, no, my biases are correct. And then they'll argue past each other because they're not actually debating. They're not actually comparing evidence and things like that. They just say, look, here's my pre-existing beliefs. Here, okay, well, here's my pre-existing beliefs. They disagree with you, and it's like, none of that's of any value whatsoever. So go ahead and post a circular logic argument now on chat. I will pause the stream and go ahead and give me an argument that is circular, and make it more complicated than this. Put at least one extra step in between, so it's not just I assume aliens are true, therefore aliens are true. Like, give me a little meat on the bones to hide the fact that it's circular. Okay, pausing the stream now. Yeah, so I assume pizza's good for me, therefore pizza's good for me is in fact circular, but that's not going to fool anyone. You know, we're trying to train you guys to be PR people now, right? Make politicians make bad arguments. So using critical thinking for evil, not for good. No, I'm kidding. Honestly, though, like watching politics is far more interesting and far more amusing after you've studied fallacies, because you're like, oh, they're doing that one right now. Oh, they're doing that one now. PR pieces are also far more amusing. It's like almost a spectator sport, right? We're like, oh, they're doing that one there, you know. And so, you know, you need to hide the fact it's circular. You got to put some intermediate steps in there, Carson. So I got food poisoning from Domino's, therefore that means Domino's is poisonous and no one should eat there. That's funny, Alejandro, because that's literally our next fallacy, which is false generalization, right? If you eat someplace at if you eat at Domino's, you get food poisoning one time, and you conclude from that Domino's is bad food. That's actually a false generalization fallacy, not exactly circular logic. But I'll give you the point for it anyway. Logic is important because it's important to use logic. Yeah, again, that you need to hide the circularity a little bit more than that. To accept abortion is legal in California. That's more of like a legalism argument. You know, that which is legal is that which is moral. I assume PlayStation 5 is better than Xbox, as they're harder to get. Therefore, PS5 is better. Yeah, it's a good one. It's a good one. You must allow people to jaywalk since it's legal now. It's kind of legal. It's sort of legal now. You're allowed to jaywalk if there's no cars on the street, basically. So, that was a real thing. Therefore, God exists. That's not exactly circular. I know my CPU is definitely dead. So if my PC, Chris, it sounds like you're doing a haiku there. I know my CPU is definitely dead. If so, my PCA lanes aren't working. Since my PCA lanes don't work, that's why my GPU isn't outputting video. Therefore, my CPU is dead. It's very poetic. I love it. All right. Yeah, that's circular. You must obey the law because it's illegal to break the law. I mean, yeah, good. I'll take that. I assume that because pizza has pineapple on it, it has all the food pyramid, therefore pizza is healthy. No, I wouldn't actually say that's circular. Like, because you're arguing from evidence to a conclusion. Okay. So next up is appeal to consequences. This is a very powerful argument. Basically, if you don't like the conclusion to an argument, a lot of times people will just skip the argument and look at the conclusion and be like, oh, that conclusion's wrong. Therefore, they must have made a mistake somewhere. And that's basically all of online debating, I think. I don't like your conclusion. Therefore, you made a mistake somewhere. I can't explain where or how, but you did, because I know your conclusion's wrong. So if there's an argument against God, then Christians will reject the argument. I don't know where the mistake you made, atheist, was, but I know you made one. And then contrawise, like if there's an argument for God, then atheists will be like, I don't know where you're. And sometimes they'll like reverse engineer something like, well, you can't say that things come into existence because we've never seen something come into existence, and they'll make kind of like a weak argument like that. And so like, when Trump was president, a lot of people are saying he's not my president, and then Biden becomes president. Oh, Republicans, he's not my president. No, he's your president. Like, I'm sorry, like he is. Yeah. Like whether or not you like the outcome doesn't matter. Like reality does not care whether or not you like the outcome. It's reality, right? And so, appeal to consequences. If we want to look at it in comic book form, it's from Saturday Morning Breakfast Cereal. If P is false, I'll be sad. I do not wish to be sad. Therefore, P is true. And there you can now skip 99% of philosophical debates. It basically boils down to people reverse engineering what they want reality to be like. And that's not how reality works. Reality kind of doesn't care. Like, for example, global warming. If global warming was true, then I would have to stop driving my truck. I like my truck. Therefore, global warming is false. Right? And there's a lot of things like that, right? Like, or if you've just invested yourself heavily into protesting global warming, if global warming was false, then it would make me sad. Therefore, global warming is true. And so basically, this is the underlying cognitive. The underlying cognitive bias is like people don't want to be wrong, right? Or there's also something called the sunk cost fallacy. Once you've invested yourself into something, then humans have a desire to be consistent, and so they don't want to be wrong. And having to, wasted all of those years of their life on something that was wrong, it makes them sad. So they don't want it to be sad, so they conclude the opposite. Yeah. And so the basic form, though, of appeal to consequences is this. If X is true, I don't like the consequence, therefore X is false. Right? That's kind of the basic form. And the only time where that actually works is like maybe in moral arguments, right? Like when you're talking about meta ethics, like which ethical system's better, right? What's better, utilitarianism or Kantian ethics? Like it's pretty common actually for people to use appeal to consequences there. For example, they'll say, well, look, under utilitarianism, if you torture somebody and the person who's torturing the person enjoys the torture more than the person being tortured experiences pain, then it's morally good. And people will say, I don't want that to be true. I don't want that to be considered a moral activity. Therefore, it's not. And so, and morality has something to do with like, what's a good way of putting it? Morality is the way that moral people should act, right? And so if you get a thing where like the outcome of a moral rule, like under utilitarianism, torture would be good if people just really liked torture. If people say, I don't want to live in a world where, that is, or rather, I don't think moral people should behave that way. The outcome of the moral theory seems counterintuitive. That's maybe a place where it's okay. Now, a utilitarian might say, well, that's just how it is. Like it's the moral theory is the moral theory. And, if somebody really likes torture, it's good, So it's not a great counter argument, maybe. But this is the one time where like maybe people can use appeal to consequences. If they say, well, look, if you follow Kant, you're gonna get your friend murdered if a murderer asks for his address and you tell him, and the consequence of that is unpalatable. Therefore, Kantian ethics is wrong. You see this argument made by philosophers all the time. They're looking at the consequences of a moral theory and saying, look, the outcome seems wrong or implausible or against our moral intuition or something like that. And so maybe it's okay. Okay. Next up is false generalization. So false generalization is when we draw it's sometimes called a hasty generalization. It's when we draw a generalization, which is a broad conclusion about something from insufficient data, right? So, for example, if you do a study and you had a sample size of four people, and you said, well, look, Americans are 75% women now. Maybe of the four people you picked, 3 of them were women, 1 of them was a dude. If you did a study saying, look, 75% of Americans are women now, it's like, well, are they, or are you drawing a bad generalization, right? You haven't done the legwork to gather enough data to do the stats properly, which is what a false generalization is. The answer for false generalization and cherry picking, which is a form of false generalization, the answer to all of these things is do the stats properly. Like do a representative sample of your population, and then do a generalization from that. And the funny thing is, you actually don't need that many people. Like a lot of people think that if you want to get a good representative sample of like America, like out of 330 million people, like if I wanted to sample America, like let's say I could randomly sample people, and I wanted to sample them for, I don't know, years of college or something. It doesn't really matter. How many people do you think? If you just had to guess? There's 330 million people in America, something like that. 370, I don't know. How many people do you think you should sample to get the error rate within about a percentage or so? If you just had to guess, how many people in America would you have to sample in order to get plus or minus 1%? See how many people are in America. People in America. $330. Okay, cool. So how many people in America do we need to sample to get like 1%, like within 1% error margin? A little more than half, so 100, 150 million, 100,000, 1,000. The answer is 60 million, 1 million, a little more than half, 13 million. The answer is 16,000. So you actually don't need, with a 99% confidence level, with a plus or minus, 1%, it's with a 99% confidence level, it's 16,000 people. If you don't even need 99% confidence, it'll be even lower than that. Like it's actually surprising how few people you actually need to study to have a pretty good confidence and narrow error margin. So 60 million, 1 million, yeah. Like you literally don't need that many. You need more than 4 though. Right? So if you, I don't know, let's see, sample size calculator. So we have a population of 330 million people here. And let's see here, sample size. Let's say we have a sample size of 4 from 330 million. The margin of error is 48%. It's not very good. But if you have a sample size of like 100, the margin of error is 10%. Sample size of 1,000, margin of error is 3%. Like, it's actually, like, that's why most, like, presidential, who are going to vote for studies sample about 1,000 people or so. And so you get, because the polls move up and down, like, all the time. And so there's kind of no point having a super accurate survey when you're going to do another one, tomorrow. And so they have these error bars on them, and the numbers kind of go like this. And they're generally looking for bigger trends than smaller trends. Yeah, 16,000. It's surprisingly small, and that's at 99% confidence. So personally, like I had 3 Western Digital hard drives break on me within the same month, and it was really annoying because when a hard drive dies, you have to take it back to the store, get another one, wait in line, take it home, reinstall Windows on it, reinstall Steam, re-download all of your games, reinstall Microsoft Office, copy over from the backup, which takes forever. And then your hard drive dies again. And then you drive it back to the store, get another hard drive, reinstall Windows, reinstall Steam, reinstall Office, and then it dies again. And then you take it back. And it happens a third time. And I'm just like, screw Western Digital. This is a crappy company. And so basically, I more or less promised never to buy them again. And I haven't. It's been a while. It's been like 20 years since this happened. And I still to this day haven't like intentionally bought a Western Digital hard drive. I've bought it incidentally. Like if you buy like a PlayStation, I think it probably has a Western Digital in it. If you buy a laptop, it probably has one in it. I haven't intentionally bought a Western Digital hard drive in 20 years because of this incident. And so basically, it's a false generalization, right? Western Digital hard drives are just as reliable as everyone else. But mostly it's just my burning hatred because I had to reinstall Windows and Steam and, Office and drive to the store and wait in line the return window over and over again. I was just like, no, screw you guys. I'm done with you, So Seagate is amazing. About 200 drives and only 4 broke after 2 years of data center use. Yeah. So Seagate hard drives are trash because I bought one once and it broke within a week. Yes, very good, Chris. That is exactly a false generalization. If you bought a Seagate hard drive and it broke, and you say all of them are terrible, that's false generalization. However, if you're clever, what you do is you look at Backblaze, not Blackpink. That's funny. Backblaze hard drive stats. So there's a data center that publishes failure rates on different hard drives and things like this. And you can actually see, and they break it down by manufacturer and drive label and things like that. So if you do the stats, then that's good. You're a critical thinker. Good job. But most people will be like, I had a Ford, it broke down all the time, therefore Fords suck. So go ahead and on chat now, give me a false generalization. You probably got all sorts of examples from real life. The Lakers lost 2 games in a row, therefore the Lakers are a sucky team, whatever. Go ahead. I'm going to pause the stream now. All right, coming back. Starbucks messed up my order every time this week. Therefore, Starbucks. Yeah, saying I wouldn't get anything from there again isn't exactly false general. That's not a false generalization, right? The conclusion from that would be Starbucks always screws up my order, or something like that. Chipotle food makes people sick because it made me sick twice. I have not pooped in a while because I'm constipated. Therefore, I'll never. Amazing. Keep up the high quality. 9 a.m. section. Never change. 49ers always lose in the conference championship. Therefore, we are cursed. No, I mean you beat my Chargers when I was in high school. So, I ate 5 pieces of watermelon last week, and 3 of them made me sick. I'll never eat there again. Spicy food makes my stomach hurts, and I'm all over it. I'll never eat spicy food again. My Samsung phone exploded, therefore all Samsung phones explode. Yeah, it was that. Was it a phone? I mean, the Note, was it the Samsung Note 8 or something like that? It's a tablet phone, a phablet, I think they call it. I don't know. I went to Shaver twice, and the road was closed. I'll never go again. I'll never go again is not the false generalization. The false generalization would be, therefore the road is always closed. Like you guys are all staring at the last sentence here. That's not the false generalization. If you wanted it to be a false generalization, like I get that you're copying my quote here, but the false generalization is therefore Western Digital is a bad hard drive company. They make unreliable hard drives. Okay, I left that part out here. So some of you guys are skipping that as well because you're copying me, which is fine, I guess. My dad went to the store and never came back. He stepped out for some smokes. Amazing. My cat leaves my house every weekend. All cats go to a party every weekend. I don't know if that's exactly... Okay, sure, why not? Just because I like the image of it. McDonald's is giving people raw food, therefore McDonald's isn't a good restaurant to buy from. Okay. Subway ingredients make me sick, therefore Subway's not good. Makes people sick. Made me sick once or something like that. Like I don't like. You have to say how many times, maybe, because like maybe you've been there 1,000 times, and if you've been there 1,000 times, it's fair to say it always makes you sick or it serves bad food or something like that. Okay, so the human brain is actually quite good at finding trends and things like that. The time period in which I was buying the Western Digital hard drives, they had a failure rate of 80%. And so 80% of all drives made by the world's largest hard drive company were bad. They had bad seals on the hard drives. They were letting air and dust in. And so guess when I was buying my hard drives, it was all from this batch that happened to be bad. And so I was correct in that their drives were unreliable with that serial number, so to speak, Nowadays, I understand they're fine. I read the stats. I just don't buy them out of spite. Okay, so because like I got really annoyed at them, and so I just will buy any company other than Western Digital. So cherry picking is a form of false generalization. Okay. Um, so cherry picking is a form of false generalization, and it's when you select certain examples to stand in for the whole. Okay, and this takes place every time at the State of the Union address. I only saw the State of the Union for about 10 minutes this time. I normally watch every year because it's highly amusing to me. And this time I only watched like the first 10 minutes, which is never the interesting part. Like it's always just like everyone's standing up and applauding. And, Biden was talking about how much he wants to work with Republicans and everyone applauds and stuff like that. It's like, great. But in the State of the Union, there's always like some kid like in the audience. And the president at some point in the speech will point at the kid and be like, I just met Timmy, the other day when I was just traveling as I do through West Virginia, and I ran into Timmy there, and Timmy said, Mr. President, why isn't the internet good in West Virginia? And I said, you know what, Timmy? You're right. I'm going to take you up to Washington, D.C. so you can tell all those people about how bad, the internet is at your house, and then maybe they'll do something about it or something like that, and, or Timmy told me about the Nord Stream gas pipeline from Russia and how much he was concerned about Russia selling natural gas to Western Europe. Sure he did. And so there's always like, I was talking to Mrs. Grundle from, South Iowa, the other day, and she told me, you know what I care about, Mr. President? I care about the Teaching American History program, whatever. And so they always have like some random, folksy story, of how they just happen to be randomly traveling through the countryside. And this person stood up and said, this is, and then they select that. That's a cherry they pick out of all the 330 million people in America. That's the one cherry they pick out of the lot. And they say, look, this is standing in for America. This is what Americans believe. Are there any 8-year-old kids on crutches? Because there's usually that care about the Nord Stream pipeline from Russia to Europe. Probably somewhere, but like most 8-year-olds probably don't care about. They care about Legos and stuff like that. And so, these things are cherry picking. Like it's very common in politics. They'll always have some personalized story because it makes it more relatable, right? So instead of just saying, hey, we need to be concerned about Russia selling natural gas to Europe because it's funding their war, you could say that, but it's not as interesting it's not as relatable as an 8-year-old kid on crutches being like, before I die, Mr. President, just shut that pipeline down. So like I said, politics becomes a lot more fun after you study fallacies because you're like, oh, they're doing that. Reading press releases. Oh, they're doing that. So, basically, and it goes both ways. So if somebody says something bad about your group, if they cherry pick like a bad member of your group, like if you're a Republican and somebody finds like one of my friends has like a crazy aunt, who posts like all these like like just completely off the wall stuff, and you'd be like, look, you can see Trump supporters are all crazy, and then people say, whoa, that's the exception. That's not the normal ones, and so people who don't like Trump say, no, this example shows you what Trump supporters are like. This is the example that proves the rule. And then other people are like, whoa, that's just a random person. The normal people are not like that, and it goes both ways, right? It's like when a Bernie bro stabbed some Muslims on a subway in Portland. Republicans are like, see, Bernie Sanders supporters are violent criminals. That's a great example of how they want to just murder people. And then the Bernie supporters are like, whoa, that's just a random dude with a knife on the subway. When an atheist shot up a Muslim family, people like, see, look, atheists are murderers. cherry picking. You pick one example, be like, look, and the murder wasn't even over religion; it was over a parking spot, which is still not a great reason to murder somebody, right? The really insidious form of cherry picking, though, comes out when it's in science. And so in science, you have to be very careful to select your population, have a representative population of whatever it is you're studying. The single most studied population in America is the college freshman. And the reason for that is because psych classes oftentimes require you to participate in a study if you're going to be in the psych class. And so, if you ever see a news report saying, binge drinking is, for whatever reason, extremely popular in, the end of August, beginning of September during Welcome Week, Americans are drinking more than ever during the end of August. It's like, are they? Or is it because you're selecting freshmen for your study and they're away from home for the first time and are around a lot of alcohol and, don't know their limits and things like that, right? And so you have to dig into the study, though. And this is like what I was saying with cherry picking and false generalization, is that the only solution to it really is just to do the legwork yourself. Like, you have to open up the study and be like, all right, who is your sample population? Did you survey people across America? Are you surveying college freshmen? And if they survey college freshmen, then you can conclude college freshmen drink a lot at the end of August, beginning of September. That's fine. But if you say, Americans are drinking more, or Americans feel a lot of stress early on in December, maybe it's because of Christmas, and the holidays. But you look at the study and it's like, again, college freshmen, you're like, or maybe it's because of finals week, like maybe that has something to do with the stress level that Americans are facing, And so, and that's not even like deliberate cherry picking necessarily. Like, a lot of times, like if scientists really wanted to like go off the rails, and just not be honest, like they can just select people that have answers they like. Like, if you want to prove that Swiss people are like far more violent than like Swedish people, then you survey a bunch of people, you throw away the answers you don't want, and you're like, look, Swiss people are angry and violent, But fortunately in science, like outright fraud like that usually isn't the problem. The problem is usually the biases of the scientists not thinking about things all the way. And that's why it's really important for science papers to publish their methods, to publish their data sets, to publish their questions and things like that. The other day I was reading a study that said, and you have to be really careful with cherry picking when it comes to anything in politics. So if you're a scientist studying anything in politics, like comparing Republicans and Democrats, like my immediate like red flags go up all the time. Like anytime they're like comparing like, the attitudes of like Republicans and Democrats, like I'm immediately suspicious of it, right? Like the press X for doubt thing, like, Republicans are this way, Democrats are this way. Like, one of the first questions I have is like, who are the scientists doing this? Are they all Democrats? Are they all Republicans? Because that's going to make a hell of a difference as to the outcome of the study. I was reading this thing, and it was saying that Republicans are more likely to hold racist views. I'm like, all right, click. And I open it up, I read it over. I'm like, all right, the numbers look, plausible. Who are the sample size? I think it's like 400, right? That's decent, Let me look at the survey questions. And the survey question was like, do you think that hard work allows you to help you get ahead in America? And that was considered a racist response if you said yes. And I was like, whoa, like I can see where that's coming from, because a belief in meritocracy is in certain circles considered racism. But I'm like, man, if they had like a diverse viewpoint set of scientists working on this, like that wouldn't have been one of the questions. You know what I mean? And so it's a problem. Like when all the people doing something, especially when it comes to politics and things like that, if all of your people are on one side of the aisle and not on the other, then like they probably didn't, like it probably wasn't deliberate. It was probably just this like they didn't have anybody to object to them, right? And it's a real problem when you're doing like social science and things like that. Like you probably want somebody who disagrees with you working with you, which sounds weird, right? You want somebody who's opposed to you being your partner, opposed politically or opposed on whatever the issue under discussion is, so that it catches mistakes like that. Okay, so yeah, and so basically you can't rely on like isolated examples. Okay, so go ahead and post some cherry picking examples. It could be from science, could be from real life. This is again false generalization. So like when Alex was saying Starbucks messed up their order, like that's therefore they can't make it, right? That's definitely cherry picking, right? Because out of all the millions of coffee drinks made per day, you select the one where they like confuse chocolate chip with Java chip or something like that, right? So go ahead and post cherry picking now on chat, and I'll pause it. So while you guys are typing, let me give you another example of how you can cherry pick in politics. The economy is doing good right now. The economy is doing bad right now. So right now we have Biden as president. He's a Democrat. So Fox News is going to talk about how the economy is bad right now. And CNN will talk about how the economy is good right now. Under Trump, it's the opposite. Fox would talk about how good the economy is, and CNN would talk about how bad the economy is. For example, under Trump, Fox was constantly talking about how black unemployment was at all-time lows, right? And that's cherry picking, right? Because the economy isn't a thing. Like, it isn't one thing. Like, whenever you talk about the economy being good, like, that's a meaningless claim, because what are you talking about? Are you talking about the gross domestic product of America? Are you talking about unemployment? Are you talking about the stock market? Like, what are you talking about? And you can there's so many different stats. You can just pick one, right? And so like Fox is like, look, under Trump, black unemployment all-time low. Boom, there you go. The economy's great. Under Biden, they've been prioritizing unemployment. So unemployment is low right now. It's at 3.5%, right? If you look at the past, 20 years, that's about as, I think that might actually be the historic low over the past 20 years. And so if you're a Democrat, you say, like, look, the economy is good right now. Unemployment is low, right? Maybe that's what we mean by the economy. And so maybe it means the Dow Jones Industrial Average, right? Over the past 5 years, it's up, over the past 5 years. Over the last 1 year, it's, I don't know, 33 to 33. It's about even. If you look at the last month, it's down. Like, what are you talking about? Like, the economy is doing good. The economy is doing bad. Okay. What do you mean by the economy? The stock market? Okay. Over what time period? What window are we talking about when you say the stock market is down or the stock market is up? And you can always just select, some window, that matches your narrative, however you want. So, for example, if I was Biden, I'd be like, look, unemployment is down 10% over the last 3 years. I would pick April 2020 as my starting point for my window, right? Whereas if I was trying to say, Trump was great for unemployment, I would pick December of 2019 as the ending point for the window. I'd be like, well, the COVID stuff doesn't count. You put it, and stats for a long time are going to have a giant asterisk for that whole time period of COVID, because you can see how exceptional it was, right? And so I've seen lots of stats online, like, look at the unemployment under Trump, and it used 2016 as a start date, and it used January 2020 as as an ending date, and so and not 2020. Let's see. Yeah. Anyway. So you basically, what did it be? April, whatever. Yeah. So you can basically say, look at how bad unemployment was under Trump. You just pick the starting dates. You cherry pick those. Okay. So conditioner is good for your hair. Kendall Jenner has nice hair and uses conditioner. Everyone should use this conditioner. Good. My mother got mad at me for eating in my room because she said I'll have ants. Therefore, my mother hates when I eat in the room. I like Pokemon and video games. When I went to college, I sampled everyone I know, and they all said strong people aren't good at college. Okay. I got sick as a carne asada, therefore I won't eat meat. Good. If you're not going to hit a rock jumping in the water, he did see it and did hit the rock. Interesting. The BTS fan was toxic, therefore all BTS fans are toxic. Funny. My father got mad at me when I turned up the thermostat, therefore all fathers hate it when you turn up the thermostat. Yeah, good. Okay. Tom Brady is not the best QB because his last game was terrible. Yeah. It's a good one. I beat the market by 5%. Come invest with me. I'll make you more money. 500 beat him every other year. Yeah. Yep. Okay. So good. Now, moving goalposts is not. There's not a lot to say about moving goalposts. Basically, moving goalpost fallacy is somebody makes a claim, and then another person disproves the claim, and then person A changes their claim so that they were right all along. All Fords are terrible. But you told me yesterday you thought the Mustang was a good car. Well, yeah. I mean, other than Mustangs, Fords are terrible, right? And so they modify the original claim. Now, the thing is, like, if you admit you're wrong, like I was talking with somebody online, and I was reading a book on the composition of medieval armies from 1100 to 1500, because that's the kind of thing I do. And the claim in that book was that there were no standing armies in Europe at the time. And so I posted that online. And then a guy went, and I check his flair on Reddit, and he's a Byzantine scholar. I'm like, fair enough, because the Byzantine Empire extended into, Greece and the Balkans. And I'm like, fair enough. Sorry, Western. Let me revise my claim. Western Europe did not have standing armies during the medieval period. And so, as long as you admit you're wrong and say you're wrong and revise your claim, that's fine. But moving goalpost people can't admit they're wrong, right? And so they just pretend that their modified claim was the one they were making all along. So that's very common online. Like if you deliver a knockout blow, like, no, I don't know. The Democrats have never had a female presidential candidate. You're like, well, what about Hillary? Well, other than Hillary, they've never had a female president. That's moving goalposts. Okay. I was here all along. Yeah, exactly. It's pretty easy to see. It's usually in a dialogue form like that. And then finally, we got No True Scotsman, which is a combination of false generalization and moving goalposts. So the reason why the fallacy is called No True Scotsman is because of this story here. So person A says all Scotsmen eat kippers for breakfast. Person B says, well, what about Angus? He's a Scotsman. He doesn't eat kippers for breakfast. Kippers, by the way, are actually really delicious. They're these like grilled fish. They're actually really good. I had them when I was in Scotland, in fact. And then person A says, well, Angus isn't a true Scotsman. And so what he's done is he's had a counterexample given to him, and so he's disqualified Angus for no particular good reason other than it would make him wrong, right? And so he says, well, Angus isn't a true Scotsman. And so it's a false generalization because it's not true that all Scotsmen eat kippers for breakfast, right? And it's a moving goalpost because he's disqualified. Like, he's doing this every time. So wait, it's all Age of Empires, always has been. That's funny. Basically, anytime you hear somebody say, "Well, they're not a true Christian" or something like that, there's a pretty good chance that it's no true Scotsman. It's not always. Like if you're like, well, look at Brenda, she's a Christian and she doesn't believe in Jesus. In that case, yeah, you could probably say they're not a true Christian, because being a Christian involves following, Christ. If you're a Muslim that doesn't follow Muhammad, like you could probably make an argument they're not a true, Muslim, right? So sometimes you have to be careful. Like sometimes, like them saying they're not a true, if somebody claims to be a Republican and they've never voted Republican, if they claim to be a Democrat and they've never voted Democrat, then you can make an argument like they're not a true, like if they don't vote the way they claim they are, they're not a true Republican or a true Democrat. Like that's sometimes okay. So you have to be careful. It's not always no true Scotsman, but it often is. When people say, Mitt Romney's not a true Republican, he's a Republican in name only, rhino, that's kind of no true Scotsman fallacy, right? Okay. So that is it for today, everyone. I will see you guys on Wednesday. We're going to talk about set theory on Wednesday. Quiz for today is going to be on these fallacies, and then on Friday we will do more fallacies. So fallacies are fun. I hope you guys enjoyed them. It makes life a lot more entertaining. It makes social media a lot more entertaining. It makes politics a lot more entertaining when you start seeing them everywhere and identifying them. It's part of being a critical thinker. Okay, so you have this iBooks assignment, yes, on set theory that is due on Sunday. So we'll talk about set theory on Wednesday, but you can start working on it. 2.1, 2.2, 2.3 on Zybooks. It's a little bit longer than what you did before. Not a whole lot, though. Where is the midterm? Midterm's due tomorrow at midnight, so it's been open since Friday. It is on Canvas. So just make sure you get that done by tomorrow. Check on the end of week 6 modules. Okay, I'll see you guys then. Peace.